The next guest is Dr. Irwin. He is a professor of Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Science at the UCLA Griffin School of Medicine. He contributes to understanding the reciprocal interaction between the central nervous system, the immune system, and health. He published more than 500 scientific research articles with over 60,000 citations. He has been recognized by Lifetime Achievement Award from the Psychoneuroimmunology Research Society and the American Psychosomatic Society.
今天麦克欧文教授给我们带来的演讲题目是太极拳增强病毒特异性免疫力，以及这个逆转老年人细胞与基因组炎症的这样的研究是一个比较前沿的研究。
And today his title of presentation is Tai Chi augments virus-specific immunity and reverse cellular and genomic inflammation in older adults.
在演讲之前，还是向麦克欧文道歉对不起，前面占用了一些时间，觉得您的演讲时间拖后了，非常对不起。
At first, we hope to apologize to Professor Michael Irwin because the formal presentations had spent lots of time and to make your presentation put off. So we're so sorry about that.
掌声欢迎麦克欧文教授。
Let's welcome Professor Irwin.
Thank you for.
So, Professor, should I share the screen?
Yes, please. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Oh, okay. I will. Yes, I will share my screen.
Good. Thank you.
那个，请让我共享一下屏幕。Hello, Professor. Can you see the screen?
Yes, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Karen. So today I'm going to be talking about Tai Chi and how it can regulate the immune system, and specifically how it can regulate viral specific immunity and also reverse inflammation.
今天我想要跟大家说一说有关于太极拳如何能够增强老年人的免疫力，特别是病毒特异性的免疫力，以及与之相关的一些炎症研究。
Next slide, please.
Thank you.
I have 3 objectives today.
今
The
天我
first,
yes.
the first is to summarize the literature related to Tai Chi and immune function.
今天呢，我的这个演讲主要有以下3个目标。第一个目标是总结与太极拳免疫功能相关的文献。
To characterize the ability of Tai Chi to actually increase viral specific immune function and also to augment vaccine responses.
第二个呢，第二个是描述太极拳增强病毒相关特异性免疫功能与疫苗保护能力的特征。
And the third objective is to evaluate the specificity, magnitude, and the durability of Tai Chi on reversing inflammation by examining measures at the systemic, cellular, and gene expression levels. Tonya?
第3个部分是评估太极拳在炎症 在炎症逆转效果，包括系统标志、细胞标志和基因组标志中的特异性、有效性和持续性。
Excellent. It's very important to examine the immune system for health.
对于我们人，对于健康来说，免疫系统的功能至关重要。
Infectious disease poses one of the greatest public health challenges.
传染性疾病是当前公共卫生系统中面临的最大的挑战之一。
For example, COVID-19, there were over 800 million confirmed cases and greater than 7 million deaths since 2019.
以新冠肺炎为例，2019年以来，已经有超过8亿人确诊患新冠肺炎疾病，然后有超过700万人因此而死亡。
Every year, influenza causes over 1 billion infections, 505 million severe cases, and greater than 500,000 deaths.
每一年都有超10亿人感染流感，其中500万人会发展成为重症，有超过50万人因流感而死亡。
Another serious viral infection is HIV, which has caused over 40 million deaths since it first occurred in the 1980s.
另外一个非常严重的传染性的疾病是艾滋病。自从上个世纪80年代它被发现以来，已经造成超过4000万人死亡。
The other major component of the immune system has to do with inflammation. Inflammation contributes to over 50% of all deaths due to cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and neurodegenerative conditions such as dementia.
另外一个值得关注的是炎症问题，因为慢性炎症而每年会导致了全球超过50%的死亡病例。这慢性炎症包括心血管疾病、癌症、糖尿病以及神经退行性疾病。
Next slide. There are two major components of the immune system. One is the innate immune system, which is the first line of defense against viral infections. And this is important in stimulating the immune system to respond to those viral infections by inducing inflammation.
我们的免疫系统总共可以主要分为以下2类，一类叫做固有免疫，一类叫做适应性免疫。其中固有免疫是我们人体对抗疾病的第一道防线，只有固有免疫首先被激活了，我们才会引起更多的免疫应答，来更进一步的激活我们的免疫系统。
The second component is the adaptive immune system, that once the immune cells recognize a virus, they mount a specific immune response to that virus or that pathogen with an activation of the T cells, which can kill virally infected cells, and the production of antibodies that can neutralize the virus or the pathogen.
另外一类是属于适应性免疫。当适应性免疫系统的细胞识别到了一些病毒或者是其他的外来物质之后，它们能够迅速做出反应。这里面比较重要的呢有B 细胞跟 T 细胞。T 细胞可以辅助 B 细胞产生相应的抗体，通过抗体这样的形式，能够及时的消灭外来的病毒以及其他病原体。
Next slide. These immune responses are regulated in part by the brain. And when we undergo stress, stress pathways have an important role in regulating the antiviral and the inflammatory responses.
我们的免疫系统有一部分是受大脑的控制的。那压力在我们管理免疫系统中，发挥了非常重要的作用，对炎症、对于免疫系统正常发挥作用都起到至关重要的作用。
There are two pathways that are important in regulating from the brain to the immune cells. One is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and the other is the sympathetic nervous system.
有两种方式能够实现从大脑到免疫系统的传递。第一个呢是通过下丘脑这个系统，下丘脑干脊髓的这个系统，另外一个是通过我们的植物神经系统。
Stress activates both of these systems. For example, when stress leads to the increase of the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, there's an activation of the hormone called cortisol, which binds to the immune cells and then decreases the antiviral immune responses.
压力能够同时通过这两套系统，同时通过这两套系统，来管理我们的免疫能力。举个例子，比如说，当我们的下丘脑感受到压力的时候，它就会促进产生相应的物质，通过这个物质，来影响我们的免疫力。
The other activation is due to the sympathetic nervous system, which releases neurotransmitters that can bind to the immune cells to also decrease antiviral immune responses and then increase inflammatory responses.
另一个传导机制是通过我们的植物神经系统，直接这个神经系统也能够分泌相应的物质，这些物质会减少免疫系统对病毒的应答，反而会增强我们体内的炎症水平。
We have found and published that when one practices Tai Chi for as little as 30 minutes, the activation of the sympathetic nervous system decreases.
我们发现，我们曾经做过一个研究，如果一个人练习大概30分钟的太极拳，那么他的交感神经系统活跃程度就会下降。
So there's a neural processes that can regulate how Tai Chi alters the immune system.
所以这就我们可以从神经科学的这个神经科学管理的角度，来了解到太极是怎样改变我们免疫系统功能的。
Next slide. So what do mind-body therapies have? What effects do the mind-body therapies have on the immune system?
这是一个关于身心系统可以怎么样影响我们人体免疫系统作用的一个分析。
We would predict, based upon a decrease in the sympathetic nervous system, that when you practice mind-body therapies such as Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, that there would be a decrease in inflammation.
我们可以发现，当我们在练习一些身心模式的运动的时候，比如说太极、瑜伽、冥想的时候，我们交感神经系统的兴奋性都是可以得以下降的。
There are three measures of inflammation that have been examined in prior studies: CRP, IL-6, and tumor necrosis factor.
我们在这个研究中主要观察的是3种物质，分别是 C 反应蛋白、白细胞介素6以及阿尔法肿瘤坏死因子。
And what this literature has found is that when one practices mind-body therapies, there's a decrease in CRP, a decrease in IL-6, but not a significant decrease in TNF.
当研究发现，当我们在练习太极拳或者是气功这一类的疾病的这一类身心运动的时候，我们体内的 C 反应蛋白有所增加，但白细胞介素6有所减少，肿瘤坏死因子没有发生显著性的变化。
Next slide. Dr. O has published a more recent meta-analysis that has looked at many more studies and evaluated both inflammatory responses and also adaptive immune responses.
吴炳相教授呢曾经做过一个相关的研究，在这个研究里面呢，既研究了与炎症相关的这些因子，同时呢也研究了免疫系统相关的内容。
We would think or hypothesize that Tai Chi, through its decrease in the sympathetic nervous system, would lead to an increase in antiviral immune measures or increases in the adaptive immune measures.
我们认为，通过练习太极拳，使得交感神经兴奋降低以后，我们的抗病毒相关的免疫系统得以进一步的激活，我们的适应性免疫能力得到提升。
What Dr. O's study confirmed is that the practice of Tai Chi and Qigong does increase adaptive immune measures.
吴炳相教授的研究证实了练习太极拳和气功可以提升适应性免疫。
Next slide. Furthermore, Dr. O has looked at the innate immune measures which had been previously examined, and consistent with what we had previously found, also showed that Tai Chi and Qigong could decrease multiple measures of the inflammatory pathways.
吴炳相教授的研究呢，还对先天性免疫和炎症相关的因子做了研究。通过练习太极拳和气功，可以使得炎症相关的因子下降。
Next slide, please. So let me give you an understanding of how or what effects Tai Chi has on viral specific immunity. And importantly, also, what hasn't been evaluated by Dr. O or others, the ability for Tai Chi to increase vaccination responses.
接下来我们将会进一步向大家解释为什么太极和气功都能够提升与病毒相关的特异性免疫，进而增强疫苗的保护作用。
Next slide. So the viral infection that we wanted to examine was called herpes zoster or varicella zoster virus. Varicella zoster virus causes chickenpox in kids, but all of us globally are exposed to the varicella zoster virus.
我们在临床上用于研究的这个病毒感染是水痘带状疱疹病毒。这个病毒在全世界范围内都有发现，并且在老人和孩子都有可能感染。
This is a very clever virus because it hides from the immune system in the nervous system.
这是一个非常聪明的病毒，因为这个病毒它会藏在神经节上。
However, when the immune system is lowered by stress or sleep disturbance, what can happen is there can be an activation of that virus. And then the expression of disease, as seen in the slide of the woman's very severe rash.
当我们的免疫能力下降的时候，也就是当我们的整个免疫系统功能降低的时候呢，这个病毒它就会表现出来。
And unfortunately, as we get older, our ability to fight off immune infections decreases, and our immune response decreases, and we're more likely to have this very severe activation of herpes zoster, which is a very painful and disabling condition that can last for months to years.
当我们年龄逐渐当我们逐渐年老之后呢，我们的免疫功能也有可能出现下降。我们人有可能会感染这个疾病，这个疾病会导致非常严重的疼痛，给人带来很大的痛苦。
Next slide. Fortunately, many years ago, I was able to participate in a trial in which we demonstrated that when people are given a vaccine to the herpes zoster virus, it could decrease the likelihood of having herpes zoster.
在1年之前呢，我们曾经做了一个研究，然后这个研究呢，我们在这个研究中，我们观察了如果注射相关的疫苗，那么能够显著降低患水痘与带状疱疹病毒的风险。
But what you can also see in these slides is that there's a clear benefit between getting the placebo versus getting the vaccine. But even among the people that get the vaccine, many people will have the disease of herpes zoster over the 5 years of follow-up.
我们可以从这张幻灯片中看到，我们比较了使用安慰剂和使用疫苗之间的效果。虽然说使用疫苗可以有效地降低感染风险，但是仍然可以发现，在注射疫苗5年之后，仍有很高的感染这个疾病的概率仍然是有所增加的。
So we ask to what extent we could provide Tai Chi to people getting the varicella zoster virus, and whether that would provide further improvement in the magnitude and the durability of the vaccine response.
所以呢，刚才我们已经提到了，太极拳练习可能可以对免疫力带来许多好处。那么我们就想要知道，是否可以通过练习太极拳来提高疫苗对我们人体病毒保护的强度和持续时间。
Next slide. So what we did is we randomized over 100 older adults. Older adults are at greater risk for developing herpes zoster. We randomized them to 2 conditions, Tai Chi or an education, very active education condition.
我们这个研究一共招募了189名老人作为研究的对象，将他们随机分在了太极拳练习组以及主动健康教育组。
We asked 2 questions. We asked to what extent Tai Chi, as compared to the control condition, would increase the ability of the immune cells to respond to varicella zoster virus.
我们想
Go ahead.
please
Go ahead.
我们想要知道是否练习太极拳之后，他们注射了疫苗的这个效果是否能够有所增强。
The second question that we asked was to what extent the Tai Chi would actually produce a greater in the people that received the Tai Chi, whether the immune response to the vaccine would be greater than those people that simply practiced or got the health education.
第二个问题，我们想要问的是，太极拳是否能够提升这些老人的免疫能力？
What you can see is that during the time of practicing Tai Chi versus a health education, that the people that practiced Tai Chi showed a progressive increase in the specific immune response that's necessary to protect against herpes zoster.
我们从这张图上可以看到，太极拳与健康教育相比，太极拳练习可以显著的提高，注射疫苗之后的免疫能力。
At the end of the intervention or the Tai Chi, the people that got Tai Chi had higher levels of specific immunity to varicella zoster.
可以看到，在一个时期，可以看到在某一个这个注射时期之后，
Furthermore, furthermore, people that practiced Tai Chi had a further increase in their immune response following the vaccine.
在他们注射疫苗之前，太极拳练习组的免疫能力就得到了提高。那么在疫苗注射之后，太极拳练习者他们的免疫能力也是保持了一种持续的提高。
The dotted line, that's the horizontal dotted or dashed line, is the levels of immunity in people that are 30 years younger than the people in this particular study.
这中间有一条线，他们展示的是与我们的受试者相比，大概要年轻3岁的人群，他们对于水痘带状疱疹病毒的一个免疫力的情况，也就是图中这一条黑色的颜色深的虚线横着的。
What you can see is that Tai Chi reverses the aging of the specific viral immune system.
我们可以看到，太极拳练习组，他们在某一个时间点，实际上是对水痘带状疱疹病毒的这个免疫能力，甚至超过了比他们年轻3岁的人。
And what you can see is that once people get the vaccine and have practiced Tai Chi, that they have an immune system that is very robust and actually greater than what they would have 30 years younger. In contrast, the people that just got the health education continue to have a low immune response compared to the normal, healthy, younger adults.
所以我们可以看到，注射疫苗加上练习太极拳对人体免疫能力的提高，实际上效果非常的显著，甚至可以将他们针对某一种病毒的免疫能力提高到他们原本无法靠自己实现的一种水平，也就是他们在针对这个病毒的免疫力这件事情上逆转了年龄。
Next slide. The second studies that we've done have to do with the ability for Tai Chi to reduce inflammation.
我们做的另外的一个研究是太极拳与炎症缓解。
have done 3 studies, the ability for Tai Chi to reduce inflammation in older adults, to ability of Tai Chi to alter inflammation in breast cancer survivors with insomnia. And the third study to evaluate the ability of Tai Chi to reduce inflammation in older adults with insomnia.
有关太极拳缓解炎症这个方面，我们做了以下3个研究。 第一个是研究太极拳对不同炎症水平的老年人的作用相关研究。第二个是太极拳改善乳腺癌患者失眠状况的研究。第三个是太极拳改善老年患者失眠的研究。
Next slide. Because I know we're running short on time, I'm going to talk about some of this work fairly quickly.
由于时间限制呢，所以我只会用很短的时间介绍其中的这些研究。
In this particular study, we took once again more than 100 older adults and randomized them to Tai Chi or to health education. And we further divided the sample into people that came into the study with high levels of inflammation versus normal or low levels of inflammation.
我和刚才和刚才一样，我们寻找了189个老年人作为我们的研究对象，也是按照刚才把他们分为了太极拳练习组与健康教育组，但是我们对太极拳组的状况进行了更细致的分类，我们将它分为高炎症水平组，以及高炎症水平组、中炎症水平组以及低炎症水平组。
Knowing that Tai Chi can reduce sympathetic activation, we hypothesized that Tai Chi would reduce inflammation in the people that had high levels of inflammation when they came into the study, but would have no effects on inflammation if it was already low.
由于太极拳可以对人体的交感神经带来一定的影响，所以呢，我们就猜测，太极拳可以降低高炎症水平组患者的炎症水平，甚至有可能可以降低到比低炎症水平组还要低的低的一个水平。
As you can see, Tai Chi produced a decrease of inflammation during the intervention period, and this decrease was maintained as compared to the health education during the follow-up period at week 25.
我们可以看到，在干预期间，太极拳组的炎症水平，太极拳组患者的炎症水平确实是有所降低，并且与健康教育组相比，这样的效果持续到了干预后25周。
Next slide. There are many reasons why inflammation can increase at the systemic level. And so we wanted to ask in this particular study whether changes in cellular production of inflammation would occur, and also in the expression of inflammatory genes in people that practice Tai Chi versus received another treatment for insomnia.
在这个研究中呢，我们想要了解，练习太极拳是否能够由于太极拳练习是否能够进一步的降低炎症的基因相关表达以及细胞炎症标志物。
We know that insomnia can produce an increase in inflammation and an increase in the expression of inflammatory genes.
我们知道是能够导致人体内炎症升高的原因有很多，睡眠就可以导致人体炎症基因表达出来。
And what we did then is it randomized women with breast cancer survivors with insomnia, 90 individuals, to two groups, Tai Chi or cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, and then follow them for 15 months.
我们此次研究的对象是乳腺癌生存者，但是呢，与此同时，他们患有失眠的情况。我们将他们随机分为了太极拳组和认知行为疗法组，对他们进行观察和追踪。
What we found is that both cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia and Tai Chi would dramatically improve insomnia and reduce the incidence of insomnia in this population.
我们发现，我们发现就是这两种干预方式都在一定程度上减轻了失眠的症状，但是太极拳组能够显著降低失眠发生的频率或概率。
However, in the immediate period after delivery of the intervention, we found that only Tai Chi would reduce inflammation and do so at the cellular levels and also at the gene expression levels.
在干预一开始的时候，可以说两种运动都在失眠改善的这个方面，嗯比较突出。但是到了中期，我们发现只有太极拳能够减少炎症物质，能够在细胞这个层面上减轻炎症，减少炎症的物质。
In addition to the effects on inflammation, we also surprisingly found that Tai Chi would increase the gene expression of antiviral and antibody measures at the genomic level as compared to the CBT.
而且我们惊讶的发现，和认知行为疗法相比，太极拳能够出现抗病毒相关的基因表达，也就是说，能够提高人体的免疫力。
Next slide. We further followed these women for 1 year to 15 months. And what's striking about these data is that these benefits of Tai Chi were maintained over 1 year follow-up, and that continues to be a decrease in the ability of the immune cells to produce IL-6 and produce IL-6 and TNF in the Tai Chi individuals as compared to the CBT.
我们继续对这些乳腺癌生存者，进行了1年半的追踪调查研究。研究结果发现，太极拳对提升免疫力的效果能够持续长达1年之久，并且呢会减少与炎症相关的物质的表达。
Next slide. And what we further found was that the benefits that were found in the cellular immune response were also found at measures of gene expression, with a decrease in what we call the conserved translational response to adversity, or the CTRA response, a decrease in the inflammatory gene expression, and an increase in the antiviral gene expression. In all these instances, the benefits were extended to 15 months follow-up.
我们进一步进行研究，可以发现，太极拳提高免疫能力，既表现在细胞层面，也表现在基因组这个层面。与炎症相关的物质都得以减少，而且呢，与炎症相关的基因组表达也有所降低。 这样的效果持续了15个月之久。
What's really striking about this is that both Tai Chi and CBT similarly improved insomnia, but Tai Chi had the additional benefit of decreasing inflammation at the cellular and the genomic level as compared to CBT.
重要的是，虽然说认知行为疗法和太极拳都可以改善人体的免疫能力，但是只有太极拳具有减少人体内炎症因子的能力。这种减少是在细胞和基因组层面上出现的。
Next slide. So we've replicated, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through this, but we've replicated these findings in breast cancer survivors in older adults with insomnia. Once again, there were 123 people assigned to CBT, Tai Chi, or an active control. Next slide.
我们迅速的了解一下这一个研究，这同样也和刚才那个研究相似，只不过是分为了认知行为疗法组、太极组和睡眠教育组。
Next slide, please. And what this data shows is that the benefits of Tai Chi were found acutely in this older adults. But what you also will notice in the older adults is that after 16 months, the CRP went back up. And the important difference between the breast cancer survivors and the older adults is that the older adults stopped practicing the Tai Chi compared to the breast cancer survivors. And when they stopped practicing the Tai Chi, the inflammation increased once again.
在这个研究里面呢，我们做了3个组的研究比较，这3个组分别是认知行为疗法组、太极拳组以及睡眠质量组。我们可以看到，在前面的这个一段时间里面，太极拳组它的它的免疫能力是在有所增加的。但是呢，在一段时间之后，我们让受试者停止练习太极拳。一旦他们停止太极拳练习之后，他们的免疫能力、他们的免疫系统功能便不再增加。
You may ask, why is it that the breast cancer survivors continue to practice? And they told us that they felt the practice was beneficial to them, was improving their insomnia, and would actually prevent the recurrence of their breast cancer disease.
如果你问他们为什么，如果要问为什么会出现这样的情况的话，那么我们可以说，很多人都感觉到练习太极拳之后，他们的失眠状况有所改善，并且呢，他们会觉得，如果不练习太极拳，会导致他们的疾病产生复发。
So what we've learned is that not only will Tai Chi improve the immune system, but we need to also motivate our participants and our practitioners to practice the Tai Chi to secure those benefits over time.
所以这就告诉我们，我们不仅要告诉大家要练太极，与此同时呢，还要鼓励大家进行持续的练习，以保持我们在此前通过练习太极拳获得的免疫相关的好处。
Next slide, please. But what I don't want to leave you with is a sense that the benefits of Tai Chi are just limited to the short term, because what we found in this study, that even though people decrease their practice of Tai Chi, the ability for Tai Chi to reduce the cellular expression of inflammation, as well as the genomic expression of inflammation, continued even to 16 months.
在这里呢，我希望大家不要认为太极拳对免疫功能的改善只是短期的。 通过我们的这个研究，我们可以发现，哪怕是减少了对太极拳的练习，但太极拳在细胞和基因组这个层面上的所表现出来的免疫功能的改善是仍然在持续的。这种持续的效果可以到干预后的16周都还存在。
Next slide. Skip this slide, please. Skip. There you go. And what we also found is the benefits of these Tai Chi, as you can see, were greater in the reduction of the inflammatory pathways in Tai Chi compared to CBT at the 15 months or 1 year follow-up.
在1年之后，我们对我们对受试者进行跟踪调查访问，发现，太极拳可以更好的改善患者体内的炎症状况。
Next slide. So what we've demonstrated, or what I've shown you today, is that Tai Chi can boost antiviral immune responses, which may be important to not only varicella zoster virus, but because it's impacting the T cell response also is important for protecting against influenza and pneumococcal pneumonia, as well as other infectious diseases.
太极拳可以增加记忆 T 细胞对水痘带状疱疹的免疫应答。那么，未来的话，我们仍然需要更多的研究来探索太极拳是否可以让记忆 T 细胞对其他的一些病毒，例如流感病毒或者肺炎、链球菌肺炎等这些疾病也产生类似的应答。
We also have shown that Tai Chi can boost a vaccine response, but we need to have other studies to know whether that benefit can produce a greater durability and long-term protection from vaccines.
太极拳可以增加老年人的免疫应答，增强疫苗的保护作用，但不确定这样的作用是否可以推广到其他的人群，也不能够确定太极拳是否会对疫苗的效果产生持久性的影响。
For example, we know that the COVID vaccine decreases its protection by about a half in about 6 months. And the question would be, if we gave Tai Chi to people that were receiving the COVID vaccine, would we further boost their immune response and produce a more durable immune protective response that may last as long as 1 year?
给大家举个例子，比如说，如果我们注射了新冠肺炎疫苗，那么我们可以降低50%的得病概率。如果说在此基础上，我们每一天都练习太极拳，那么有没有可能让我们的免疫能力得到一个全面免疫应答得到一个有效的增强和增加？这样的话，能够使得疫苗保护我们的时间。疫苗的保护时间变得更长。
Furthermore, we've shown that Tai Chi can reduce inflammation, and we know that inflammation can impact the likelihood or the risk of getting cardiovascular disease and other inflammatory disorders. An important question is therefore to ask to whether we can actually decrease the risk or the progression of inflammatory disorders.
另外一个重要的方面是，太极拳可以在基因组层面上减少炎症。我们未来需要更多的研究来探索，减少了引起炎症的这些因子，是否可以减少我们患这些与炎症相关疾病的风险。
Thank you very much for your attention today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Yeah. Is that all?
I don't think we need to review that because I've already talked about that.
Oh, okay, I see.
And nor that one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tonya.
And thank you very much for your presentation.
非常感谢麦克欧文教授的精彩的演讲。
And thank you very much for your excellent presentation.
我感觉你能够从细胞与基因组这个水平去研究太极拳增强病毒的这个特异性免疫力，真的是一个高水平的研究。
I believe your research, especially from the aspect of cellular and genomic level, to research how our immune system is working, and this is really a high level investigation.
而且您的研究还发现太极拳还可以增强疫苗的这个保护作用，这也是一个非常有趣的一个研究。
And it is very interesting to know that Tai Chi could increase the vaccine response.
而且还可以使这个对炎症的这个抗炎作用加，还可以通过太极拳的练习可以维持到1年之久。这个我觉得也是很有趣的一个现象。
And we never think about that the effect of inflammatory decrease effect could last for over 1 year.
所以我就在想，将来有没有机会跟这个麦克欧文教授一起合作，咱们探讨一下，在这个在中国和在美国的2个不同的人群里边，他的一些共同的这种合作研究。我想这一块也是我这边努力的方向，北京体育大学努力的方向。
And I wish in the future, if we have chance, we could cooperate together to do some research, and we can research both Chinese people and American people at the same time, and maybe we may have some new findings. This is maybe the next step that Beijing Sport University will do.
所以我想将来有机会的话，能够跟麦克欧文教授一起合作，做一些深入的研究。
Yes, we hope to do more deep. We hope to do more high level and high quality research with you.
Thank you.
谢谢麦克欧文教授。那么下面呢，进入这个提问与交流的环节。
And now is the time for question. Please ask a question now.
好。提问的可以举手示意。
谢谢麦克教授的精彩的分享。麦克教授您好，我是北京体育大学的一名学生。关于您的汇报，我有一个问题想提。与健康教育、睡眠教育和认知行为疗法不同，太极拳属于一种运动。运动被认为是可以提升人体免疫力的方法。太极拳和气功其他运动相比，对免疫系统的影响有哪些不同？
Distinguished Professor Irwin, I'm a student of the Beijing Sport University, and I want to ask you a question. Different from the health education, sleep seminar, and CBT, Tai Chi is a sort of sport. Sports are also regarded as a tool to enhance immune function. How the influence of Tai Chi or Qigong on immune system differs from other sport events?
Yeah, that's a very great question. And we know that obviously people that are practicing Tai Chi are engaged in a physical activity as compared to people that were practicing CBT or the control condition, which didn't have that physical activity. And so we actually evaluated to what extent measures of physical activity changed over the course of the study. And what we were surprised to find is that none of the group changed their physical activity. But what we did find is that people that were practicing Tai Chi decreased the amount of time that they were doing walking or other activities such as that, so they would practice their Tai Chi. So even though they were walking, which would have some health benefits, they were replacing that walking with Tai Chi, and we're still seeing the benefits. And that suggests to me that it's not just the physical activity that's driving the benefit that we're seeing in inflammation and antiviral immunity, but rather it is a decrease in the sympathetic outflow that occurs by the practice of Tai Chi.
我们其实在当时设计这个运动方案的时候呢，也考虑到过相关的问题。你比如说，也有像慢走或者说是跑步等一些强度很低的一些运动，我们其实也研究过。但是我们发现他们也许这些运动其实对健康来说都是有好处的。但是这一些运动，它们都不能够对人的交感神经产生影响，就是这一点使得它们和对人体免疫力的影响有所区别。Professor Ivan, is that all? Yeah. 好的，这就是我对这个问题的回答。